This is Marketing Uncomplicated. Welcome back to the show, everybody. My guest today is Rob Napoli, a very good friend of mine, actually, a friend that has been in my life for a while, even from helping me find my own job. So him and I have definitely gone through roller coaster rides together. And we have definitely stayed in touch in the world of, social media and Instagram and, pinged each other here and there. And we're finally connecting, and I'm excited to dive into this conversation. But before we do, Rob is the Chief Commercial Officer for Omniboost, and he'll get into what they do and who they are, where he oversees global strategic growth across sales, marketing, and brand. He didn't get there just yesterday, so we'll talk about his trajectory and his kind of growth spurt to get there. Omniboost is a hospitality tech platform providing data unification and data flexibility across PMS, accounting, POS, and much more. Rob is also an accomplished author, podcast host, and speaker on brand and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you. Excited for this to finally happen. We've been dancing around each other for the last couple of years. You were in New York a couple of times. We're trying to meet up. We're trying to get on conversations. We've been playing the game for a while because schedules haven't lined up. So love that we're finally at least here virtually and hopefully soon in real life again. Because it's been, you moved out of New York City, 4 years ago now?
Pre-pandemic 2018, exactly. Yeah. So lots have changed. Lots and
Yeah,
lots.
and it feels like yesterday, to be honest. It doesn't feel like that was that long ago.
Yeah. So let's definitely dive back because you and I met when I was hopping from one position to the other, and you were in an amazing position with the staffing company that you were working with. But fast forward, a little bit because I don't necessarily think we need to dive into your position at the staffing company, but although it did give you that kind of jumping off board into what you dove into after. So give us a little bit in terms of that background and your growth from there.
Yeah, I mean, the quick version of that is, I moved to New York City after living in Italy for a couple of years coaching American football, where I got a master's in marketing, and I used the staffing platform to learn the space and kind of learn what I and didn't. And then after that, I kind of decided that it was time to have the entrepreneurial spirit, and I ended up launching my own sales agency, actually, a sales and marketing agency called Happy Group with a friend of mine, and grew that for 4 years and had that successfully acquired. And then from there, having been my own boss was kind of okay, I have done these different things from different parts of the business. I really related to the brand side. So I launched my own agency called Rise Up, where I launched my own podcast called The Necessities of Entrepreneurship, which is on a little hiatus right now because I launched a podcast in Morocco, which we'll talk about, as part of the role that I have. And in that time, I really wanted to take a couple of years. I gave myself 18 months. I told myself I wanted to give myself 18 months after I started the business to explore a few things. I wanted to write a book. That was one thing I wanted to do. So I wrote a book called The Social Soul, which is all about mastering your personal professional brand. I knew I wanted to launch the podcast. I wanted to work with some really great companies. I wanted to get really back into the startup game and coach and do some consulting and, test out a lot of things. I done the marketing background and done marketing adjacent things, but I wanted to get in and get my hands dirty. So that was in that time. I got to work for a lot of amazing accelerator programs. I was also doing corporate training. So I was training on managers how to manage Gen Z talent, which is another passion of mine, millennial Gen Z talent. So I did all the things. And then, I was in the process of writing the children's book when this opportunity came up. And the founder, we went through a program of mine back in 2020.
Yeah.
So I was a coach in a program. I had done some consulting work for him, became a strategic advisor for his business. He joked, he's like, I'm going to hire you one day. And I was like, yeah, happy you. The amount of founders, the game, so even around, they all want to hire you, but it's never the right time or the right fit or whatever reason. And the amount of companies that said they want to hire me, but none of them had ever sent me a contract.
Yeah.
So the founder came in November, first meetings, was like, hey, I'm in town again. You know the drill, which is always we do a business meeting and we go out for drinks. And he's like, what do you need to come on board? And I was like, wait, what? He's like, why hire you? So I joined as a consultant as head of brand and marketing with the real goal to it's a video notification platform, but at the time it was only seen as like a middleware, like kind of under the radar. Their goal was, let's put us on, let's create a strong brand presence, and let's really start talking about who we are and the evolution of what a company wants to be. And a big goal of that was starting a podcast. I believe in podcasting. I believe that podcast is one of the best places for you to create authority in the ecosystem, similar to what you're doing here, which I love your podcast. You've had some amazing guests. I listened to it and we've been following along, which is why we often was like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to launch. We launched Hosted Evolve about 8 months ago. Got about 25 episodes and doing that thing and kind of pulling these things together. But, you know, my sales background came up, having like recruiting and sales and being sales and marketing. And now the opportunity to kind of step into a bigger role, which ended up taking all of the global commercial business and promoted to full-time role as chief commercial officer at the end of last year and beginning of this year.
Yeah.
And now I own sales, marketing, and brand teams for Omniboost. And it gave you the quick version. It's just, I really wanted to go through those different stages of evolution of being a consultant, testing a lot of things out, and then here actually putting stuff into execution at scale. It's easy to do in a consultant role. Like you kind of go in, you kind of give them a little bit or give them a playbook or give them something and they execute, but you don't execute on day in, day out.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, damn, I've learned a lot. Executing day in and day out. Sometimes, you know, execution is not clean and it's sometimes ugly, especially when it comes to marketing and brand, but it's been fun as hell. And we've opened up a lot of really cool doors and made some impact. So yeah, it's been a fun journey and one that I don't believe in linear career paths. So I've just been enjoying it. I've been letting things come as they are and now I'm in a cool spot. So
yeah, I love that. I'm in complete agreement with you when it comes to like not building a career path in a linear manner, but you and I are very similar in the sense of like, we may not have sat down right after graduating from college and said, in 15, 20 years, I'm going to be here. Right. But there is parts of us that have been consciously building our career trajectory with every little baby step that you've been doing, which has gotten you here, which I think is also like super important. You don't have to be the uber super like planner, but you have to know, and you know this specifically well, what makes me, Rob, have an edge in comparison to like somebody else who's doing my job out there today.
exactly. And I think what I love that you kind of shared is I think I think there's two types of people out there, and both are great. One is the very, like, this is my career trajectory, and they're very focused on where they want to go, what they want to be, and they want to do that thing. And there's those that are very curious and take a lot longer to get to that thing. And you, whether you're consciously or subconsciously building it, it's just a different path. And I think that it just opens up so many doors. And, you know, you kind of, depending on how you subscribe, like, right, there's that old quote, was it jack of all trades is a master of none?
Yeah.
Right. But then the whole quote is that oftentimes better than a master of one. And I think in today's day and age, we've gone through those evolutions. When actually we met, that was by the time performance marketing came out, where you wanted to be specialized in paid search or paid social or content. And we got into, we wanted these niche mastered skills. And I tried to go deep in those things. I was like, this is boring. Just one thing is boring. Yeah. And so I love being a jack of all trades. And so that was how I went in my career path. And I think kind of have those two sides. And I don't understand, I think, a hard look in the mirror. What is it you aim to be, not what do I want to be?
Yeah.
Right. And when I switched that thinking, that actually happened for me. That's why when I saw the urgency, I wanted to take some time before kind of going into anything full time to be a consultant, to launch my own brand, to launch my own thing of just me and see where that would take me, knowing that it probably wasn't going to be the thing I was going to do forever, the rest of my life. Yeah. I was okay with that. Like, yeah. I did some really cool stuff at the time, but, you know, I really wanted to just take experience to come and jump and see what happens and figure out as I go, because like you and a lot of people out there, we have these skill sets where we can step into so many different environments and be successful. I was never afraid of not being successful in a role or never afraid of not making money and finding a job. What I wanted to do was just gain experience and see what happens. And I think that's the really cool thing about the non-traditional type of person. And it takes all types in all roles and different different roles and different areas of expertise need specialization, but I'm too ADHD to be locked into one thing.
Well, I mean, let's reframe that and say that you're too curious, right? From the
Yes.
standpoint of like of wanting to know like everything that's going on. So you had the agency and then the podcast and the book, and it's like kind of all formulating together because let's be honest, they kind of all work together and support each other from that standpoint. The social soul came out at a very interesting time when, social was boosting, but then there was other things that were like negatively impacting social media, which is shedding more of a light on now, like this juxtaposition between the positive and the negatives of social. And it's like, well, how do I use it as a person,
Mhm.
so dive into that a little bit for us, because I think I loved how then you flipped it into like a children's book, because I think that
Yeah.
it's so important with what was happening in society, to kind of go through that process as well. But I think that the book came out at a really pivotal moment for not just yourself, but just for, the environment that we were in.
Yeah. And I love that you kind of shared that because that was kind of the idea behind it. I'd actually started the project pre-pandemic. And I wasn't sure where I wanted to go with it. I knew I was doing a lot of like talking and speaking on brand and a lot of coaching on it. And even though I had the sales agency, part of that agency was we were doing the sales part of it, but we were also working with those companies on what is that brand channel. And in most founders, like your founder brand is more distributed than your business brand. Like for most businesses, no one knows who the hell it is unless you like a mess. Right? We know those things.
Yeah.
And so my whole thought was I want to teach people how to use a personal brand and create who you are and who you want to be, and how does that tie in to the professional. And as we kind of hit that pandemic, I was like, oh, this is my opportunity to really show how you're not tied to your job. So much was going on in that time that you aren't tied to the job you're in. You're tied to the skills that you have. I wanted to build that bridge. I wrote a book that was kind of evergreen. There's some stuff in there because I talk about Clubhouse and Twitter apps, and some of that stuff
Yeah.
changed. But if you look at the core foundation of the book, it's evergreen in the fact that as we grow, you have to understand that who you are and the skills you bring are much more impactful to your career. And you got to you got to be the author of your own story in that regard. If you don't talk about it and you don't share it, no one else will.
Yeah.
And I know that, the American mentality is that everyone bangs on their chest and we overinflate things. So you got to find the balance of like your own social soul. Like, who do you want to show up as? What is your authentic self that you want to show up as? Not this playbook or that playbook just because it gets you views and likes. I think we need less content creators and more content engagers. So the whole theme of the book was how do you show up daily for the communities that you serve in? And I was trying to show people you don't need to be a content creator to be successful on social. You need to be a content engager. That was the whole theme of the book. And I wanted to highlight that because the rise tech consultant was that like, let's show how you can engage and really serve the community and build that brand in the right way
I love that you
to the normal
say
person.
that. Yeah, I love that you say not a content creator, a content engager, because I think what happens most of the time is that people are chasing the creation to then, flip for the likes and the contents, and they're forgetting in terms of like, what am I actually doing? What is the value that I'm providing that can actually get the engagement without me having to think so hard about the development of the creation? Because so like Ed Milet, who's like a big podcast guy that I follow, who wrote The Power of One More, like he basically talked about, and it resonated so hard, where he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm spending all this money on getting a photo shoot when I know the second I just lift up my phone and talk directly into my followers, that's going to make so much more engagement than actually having like this beautiful shot of me sitting I don't know where, or like, there's the production and the pre-production and all of that kind of stuff involved,
Yeah.
right? And I think more than ever that authenticity piece has been there for the last 10 years, but people are drilling in it harder than they ever have in the past before.
100%. And when you think about all these startups and new companies and new ventures, like we're in the age where, look all the digital creators out there. You can create them. What you also started to see is so many digital creators coming into this niche because it was the hot thing, it was the thing that they knew they could drill down on. And then they burned out because they're creating all this content for a very specific thing. If you try to move away from that or you grow, it's hard. And I don't think folks are the whole TikTok channel, all that stuff. Building that shit was hard. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? I'm too curious to talk about one thing. And So I kind of was like, okay, I'm just like engage in the community. I started engaging the community. Everything started changing for me. I started doing more speaking gigs. Um, started going to rooms of executives to do corporate training, and just like so many things opened up when I just started to share what I wanted to share. And I kind of broke that out between what was the business side of me and the personal side of me, and two kind of go hand in hand. I'm not one who can have two separate lives. Like it all is intertwined
Yeah.
for better or for worse. And so I wanted to share and show how to do that to others through my journey, so to speak.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. What was the biggest lesson that came out other than like when you have the agency, it's a stepping stone out of the 9 to 5, and you talked about this, that it wasn't going to be forever. And guess what? It wasn't, right? And I think everybody kind of has that, like that, okay, I'm going to get out, I'm going to do X, and then I'm going to grow it, and then something else is going to come. But not everybody is like open to that unknown either. So I think that's great. But other than a lot of like case studies coming out of, the company that you had, what is the biggest takeaway from the growth spurt of like jumping out on your own, obviously writing the book, starting the podcast, like a couple of takeaways that like you can share from both a pro and a con standpoint?
Yeah. I mean, first was getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like we all
Yeah.
talk about it. We know like that's like such a motto at every company, but when you actually look in the mirror, so many of us are afraid to get uncomfortable. And we
Yeah.
started, I was selling, closing business, running contracts. Like most of it was really good at certain things and not good at others. And some of the things I was not good at is, I'm really good at product managing and creating product plans.
Yeah.
You have to go execute on those things. That's okay. I can create an amazing strategy for what I need to do. Actually, execute on creating them is hard,
Yeah.
right? And so I started to realize, and I think that was the biggest like takeaway. I was like, I have to understand what it is I love to do. And when you own your own business, it's 20% what you love to do and 80% of what you don't like to do. You got to learn everything.
Yeah.
I want to hone in and really find what those things I love to do. And that was the biggest takeaway for me. I got really uncomfortable. Actually, the stuff that I love is the stuff I'm shying away from. And I thought was a negative part of it. I leaned into that and found how to be more authentic and more transparent in that, especially in the sales and marketing skills and strategy and like executional strategy. The negative side of it, I think the negative takeaway was just it's lonely. And when it's only you, you have to understand how to be able to pull that away.
Yeah.
And I was working from home and I was home all the time, and my life kind of like was in a box and it was hard to get out of. And it also put me in a little downward spiral. It was just, it never shut off. It never stopped. And I wasn't able to kind of like find that balance of what is business and what is personal. And it got really hard because I had no one else to kind of bounce off of. And that also forced me to create a really strong network. And it's been a pleasure to do a lot of podcasts and meet a lot of people and travel for speaking. And I got to create this really unique group that became my board of advisors
Yeah.
who helped me out of that and actually helped me realize what I wanted to do next and the impact that I wanted to create. And so it was both a blessing and a curse, but it was not easy. I got people ask me about starting an agency. I'm like, look, it's one of the coolest things because you can leave at 2:00 on a Friday afternoon to go watch like the Euros right now, right?
Yeah.
You can leave and go up to the bar and watch the Euros, but guess what? You still got to close the business. Just because you aren't working doesn't mean you're not working, you're not making money.
Yeah.
And that was the hard part to just like figure out how to do all the things and manage it. And the biggest lesson was really finding my boundaries and what I needed to do for me, the health of me and the business side of me. And that really opened up a lot of doors to
Yeah.
where I'm at today.
Yeah. I think it's great that you say you learned like what you were good at versus what you weren't good at, because I think more so, and you've worked with a lot of founders, more so than not, founders are, I'm good at everything, or I've started this company, I can manage it, or like I just need to hire this person or that person, then forgetting that they're not hiring the right person versus going after the shiny penny of like, you're just starting off. You don't need that C-suite person, but who do you really need in place to make the engine kind of roll right now until
Yeah.
you get to the point of that? And that, I think, is a lot of what hurts companies when they first start off.
100%. I mean, most companies' biggest mistake is they hire too senior
Yeah.
because they're hiring others to help validate their strategy and not execution.
Yeah.
And that is something that I saw that from recruiting days, but even more so working with them, starting my business. I had a few people that helped me along the way. I've hired 3 amazing people at different stages of my business that actually helped me level up my game in ways I never thought possible.
Yeah.
Also, I learned that I hired sometimes the wrong things that I needed because I was hiring for one thing when I actually needed over here. And while they helped me, it kind of hurt me in the long run. So like you got to figure that out. And when you start to realize that, and founders don't realize that they're not going to do it. It's impossible. You can be mad at everything. You need to really understand where to fill those gaps. And it's helped me now as a leader in an organization who have a team to like really okay, what are people good at? What do they want? Where do people need support? And actually move the pieces around to be more effective, because when you do that for yourself and you realize that about yourself, you can start seeing it everywhere. It was amazing.
Yeah. I almost like when you're talking about this, I'm almost thinking about like Rob back at like the staffing company where it's like, you know what you know now, and you receive, inquiries from like X company wanting to hire X. You're probably going to be like, you know what? You don't need all of these different roles, and this is what you actually need, just because, not because you didn't know back then, but it's like having the experience that you have right now is so invaluable that I don't know, maybe there's like some coaching there for like staffing companies. Because I tell you, like you and I talked about this, it's a struggle, right? I mean, like
Very much
a
so.
lot of them don't know who the person is that they're actually pushing into an interview and actually truly what a company needs. It's a churn and burn like flow situation. And it's very
It
frustrating for
is.
a lot of people.
It is. And that's, hiring is an art and science. And
Yeah.
using an agency and as a young internal team are doing it. So you always need help. And, I think every company, business leader will understand we don't make bad hires. We don't make good hires. But understanding and starting to see those pieces of the puzzle and understanding what you actually need is you can get that right. Then you can start hunting on the town and you win more than you lose when
Yeah.
you understand what is needed versus like, okay, it's like a role. And you need to not hire for, I always like to say, don't hire for a role, hire for a certain kind of skill set that you want to bring into the organization that's going to up level the business space you're going to be in. That could be an SDR, that could be a marketing manager, that could be a VP. And you might actually realize that you don't need a VP, you need a senior marketing person who is like an IC and let them cook, and then eventually hire someone else later, reorganize the whole company around those people. And it's an invaluable thing that you can only learn by doing.
Yes.
And, hindsight's 2020 on that.
Yeah, totally. So we've moved in, you've sold your business, you've jumped into, the book, you've done the podcast, and you're basically doing all of these like consulting, speaking gigs and like all that good stuff. And I love what you talked about before we actually hit record, where, and you talked a little bit about this as we were in the show, but it's the concept of, putting the strategies in place and actually building it. And let's talk a little bit about Omniboost, because I think they're a good example from a standpoint of like, we could say a mid-level startup. I mean, they're not just brand new, but they're kind of in their accelerator phase in terms of growth. So I think that that's kind of key to like to see like, what were the pits and falls and the peaks, I guess.
Yeah. That's a deep question. I think the first thing is, especially in that early stage, everyone wants to be perfect. And I think even more so because our company is European based, and European culture is a little bit different than American culture. And one of the biggest things that I struggled with was when you kind of putting a strategy together is you need to pull all this data and the strategy needs to be perfect. And what I realized is you can pull all the data you want. And you need data to make data driven decisions. I firmly believe in data driven decisions. We're a data unification company. We leverage power and data and help others to do that through integrations and different services. But on the actual execution stage, you don't need a perfect plan. You just need to start testing.
Yeah.
And it's okay to put something out and start testing content and start testing different brand activation campaigns and knowing that may or may not work. And if you put so much time building the strategy and the execution is off, you waste a lot of time versus like kind of build the plan with flying. And I think marketing, everyone thinks marketing is sexy.
Yeah.
Marketing is not, it's boring. Advertising is sexy.
Yeah.
Marketing is actually boring because
It's
a
so
lot of
true.
data. And I think that what you need to really do is you understand kind of the core principles of marketing, right? You can look at the 4 Ps, whatever you want to use is like your marketing baseline,
Yeah.
depending on what you said and how you believe in it. As long as you understand who your customer is, and this is what I talk about in the book, like when you understand who is your customer and what are you serving in them? Like what are you serving in the community? Not what are you selling?
Yeah.
What are you serving for the community? When you lock in those two things and you just start testing content and start testing campaigns, it becomes easier to pivot really quickly. And we spent a lot of time trying to build this perfect plan and never really got executed on. And then we just decided to flip the script. Let's just start doing and seeing what sticks and kind of building off that. And when we started like executing and iterating, we actually honed in on getting a lot more traction and a lot more brand recognition and awareness because we were just like listening to the market and focusing on the community we're serving versus we had this big, beautiful plan that we worked on for a month and a half and then we started executing and it just like fell flat. And it was like, well, did we overthink the strategy? Yes. And so like for me, the biggest pitfall is like, don't overthink it. Like understand who you're serving and why. And stop creating that thing and then just be really quick to innovate.
Yeah.
And then build strategies off that. We see something kind of take place. And that was where we got really kind of locked in on and we've found some really kind of things that we've been able to twist those knobs. And we're just getting started. Like we have so much that's about to come that we're building out and executing on. I'm really excited about. I was able to bring somebody in to help do the marketing side and really execute on the day to day. And it's changed the game because we're just so agile. And it's honestly been, is that our whole culture is, getting shit done and just implementing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, it's so true. I mean, you could have an amazing product, amazing service, but if the culture isn't there from the standpoint of like growth, then it can really hurt you from pushing forward, which is a struggle, I think, for a lot of people and a lot of like businesses when they're just getting started out.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think, the culture of it, and it comes down, I think, for Omniboost, is our core values. Our founding mentality is that willingness to serve and stuff is free. That's like the core DNA of our founder. And that is seated at levels. So we work in hospitality. Hospitality is the most respectful place. You have to have things cooking. And so when we kind of like the whole way we did it, even on our sales and our marketing side, and then our sales and marketing is just, we have everything tied together is when have that willingness to serve, we just create so much better. And for us, it's growth mindset. Like, always growth mindset. And then our other two are accountability and transparency.
Yeah.
When we put stuff out, we are transparent and we are accountable to the things that we say we're going to do, and we honor those and we act on them. And that for us has been the driving force behind everything we do, which is why our podcast, we love it, and it's growing slowly, and I don't need it to grow at 1,000,000 miles an hour and be the next big thing. What I want it to be is it serving the need? Is it opening doors? Is it creating space for people to share and better the hospitality space? Yes. Then we're activating well.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it is that we're focused on the core values and everything we do ties back to that. And when we've done that, all of our content's executed 10 times better than what we thought might have been the original plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And I that's another thing that I like that you said was like, you don't need it to grow exponentially at like 100 miles an hour. And I think that's our culture here in this country, in the US, is that it's got to happen now. We got to break $1 million in 6 months, or like so on and so forth, or, if the company is just starting out. But it's like sometimes the slow and steady growth, which is what I like to talk about with some of the smaller companies that I work with, because it is adding that value and finding that piece that kind of matches with your marketing and in market value that is going to help you supersede anything from the standpoint of like grow fast, fail hard, right? So I think that's a testament that a lot of people, I think, need to focus on, because when they first get started, it's like fast, 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 let's get out, let's hurry up, we got to make the bucks back that we've lost from building this thing. And I get it, but I think slow and steady is the best way, because then you're really creating that value and you're really kind of hitting into the market where it's peaking at the pace that it should.
Yeah. And that is something that you have to have. Well, it's like from the sales side, we want to go fast.
Oh yeah.
And fast and loose. And we run we run really well and really lean and we're growing. And that's a little different from where our marketing sits. We have a marketing plan that fits into marketing sales. So then we have the long-term marketing. That's the podcast, that's organic, the content standpoint, that's the white papers, the case studies, the press releases, those things, we're taking the time to really develop that strategy and grow and, that really hits. And so you have to kind of balance those sides out when you're the sales side and the marketing side. We have to have buy-in from leadership, and we have a great leadership team that's bought into our vision, and we're all on the same page. And for companies, that's hard because we do have shareholders. So we do have to report those things, right? Let's buy them balance. And I think when you get good at that and understand what drives growth and how it builds and what the impact is in the community, when you see that impact, the impact can be incremental, but that incremental impact has long-term growth potential. Yeah. And that's what you got to lock in on. And that's where we've started to really say we haven't cracked the code, but I feel like we're working on cracking the code.
Yeah, it is all about really cracking codes. Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the whole premise of business. It's like, great idea. All right. It's cracking the code from the idea into market. And I love that you are managing the sales and marketing, because not that long ago, a lot of companies separated the two out, and they really made it like a church and state. And I think that, just listening to how your culture is and how you guys are operating, it is so crucial that sales and marketing like operate and work together, because it's usually like, they have their different mentalities, but one cannot work without the other. And specifically as it relates to sales, you need to have the marketing to kind of help boost. Yes, you can go out and you can go, hunting, but the farming is going to be supported from the marketing side, right? So it's like the two need to be solidly connected versus separated.
100%. And so, I mean, yeah, the marketing team is small in the sales team right now, but like my marketing team sits in on the sales calls. Like we do, we have two sides of the business. We have channel partners, so we work with partners, and that's amazing because, we have channel partners that reciprocate. You can do their co-marketing, co-branding, co-press releases. You can link back and you can have so much growth there, and we have kind of the direct side. And I have a marketing team sitting on those different meetings all the time because they're helping create content. They're creating collateral that's going to help our sellers sell more. They're going to create partnership marketplace materials so that we can add those things to different marketplaces. They know what we're doing on the sales side. They know how to sell it, and understand how to talk about it externally. It's really easy to market. Oh, this is our brand, and this is what we're talking internally. Well, it's how we're talking about externally. If those two aren't intertwined, they're speaking to two different audiences, and then you see terrible marketing qualified leads, and it's like, well, these aren't qualified for marketing. Yeah. And you see the all like fight between sales and marketing of like marketing qualified leads are shit, right? Like, so if you don't have marketing and sales tied together where they're speaking the same language and they're creating for each other, and sales, I just have to push myself like, hey, we need to talk to marketing. We need to understand what they need from you and make sure that you give them time to educate them so they can create the education material for you to go sell better. If that feedback loop doesn't happen, you're not going to grow. Like, then you can just end up fighting something all day. So for us, it was really important that the two stay together under the commercial business and really build together. And that was something that I think is amazing. And I've preached prior to this role, and you don't see companies do that often.
No.
I mean, we are seeing a trend where chief marketing officers are stepping into C-suites and CEOs at a higher clip than ever because marketing is more involved in the sales and vice versa. Sometimes we see CMOs run I actually see it in some companies where the CMO runs the sales team.
Yeah.
Right? And all reports to the CMO. Like, you're starting to see that shift happen. That's why we kind of chief commercial instead of chief sales or chief marketing, because both fall under they're all on a link into a commercial business. We really wanted to make sure we highlighted that our teams are really locked and speaking the same language. So that's how we create impact.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and then for like, depending on the type of industry you're in, it's marketing, sales, and then the customer service. If we're not listening and paying attention to what our customer is, and I don't care the size of your company, that is just so crucial, because you paid X to receive the lead. Sales has spent X amount of time to like nurture and get them to close. And then if customer service or, the onboarding process is not there, you can just lose them within a month. And then that's just a wash completely. So it's like that kind of train needs to be in a good standstill across the board, and they all need to kind of support each other.
In fact, our chief operating officer, who runs our onboarding and support line of business, and I had a support, chief operating officer actually is in our sales meetings. It actually does as part of our growth strategy. In the sheer fact that we want that so tied in so they understand what we're selling, and which my paradox actually gets into the sales conversations. One, he likes it.
Yeah.
But two, for him, is to take that back and understand, okay, from the onboarding and support side of the business, are we speaking the same language as sales and marketing? Are we tied into a sales and marketing student so that we are providing the same level of service that we're talking about, and that's consistent? And so I love it that we do crossovers with our support team all the time, and our chief operating officer comes into the sales meetings and gets involved in the sales process to make sure that all those things are aligned, so that all three areas are speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And that's something that we are very intentional about across the board, is that we have our own lane, so to speak, but we're all tied in so that there is no miscalculation or reason to churn. Our churn is less than 1%.
That's amazing.
For that reason. I truly believe, even during the pandemic, and half the time when the podcasts were closed, we churn less than 1%.
Yeah.
That's because all areas of our business are locked in to what is it that we're trying to do from our core values, and that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Less than 1% is like the gold standard for anyone at this point. Wow. I mean, truly an amazing kind of like build out of like your career and where you are, Rob. Before we go, I mean, obviously, let the audience know where they can find you on LinkedIn. But then I also want you to give us 3 or 4, whatever pieces of advice in terms of the things that have stood out for you the most from where you've come to where you are today, that you take with you in terms of like learning lessons that kind of have pushed you forward and that, are your kind of keys to success.
Yeah. First one is be curious. Curiosity leads you down great places. I think Walt Disney had a great quote about being curiosity, and curiosity got your path. I can't think of it off my head, but it always stuck with me from the Walt Disney mentality, just like being curious, because curiosity will always open new doors. And then for me, the second piece is don't be afraid. It's okay to fail. Like, I think we, in a day and age of social, we're so afraid of failure because we have to put on, because everything is so visible, that you learn more from failures than we do successes. And I'm sure that I failed a lot. In my life, I've gone through highs and lows, and I've learned more from those failures that have led to successes now at this stage of my career. So don't be afraid of fail. I think that's really something that the younger generations need to learn. I think it's so much built on success versus failure.
Yeah.
You can't have success without failure. You can't have joy without failure.
Yeah.
So the second piece is like, don't be afraid to fail. And I'd say the third piece is be intentional. Build a network. I have amazing people. I mean, we've stayed in touch since 2018 when we met for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's really important to be intentional about the board of advisors and the people you keep in your network and actively met. It's really easy to get lost and stuck in these things, but if you are intentional and smart about building authentic relationships, and you have to put in the work to be vulnerable and transparent, when you have those people around you, and as a board advisor, you can call and ask that, you will go further faster, because you have amazing talent, and you got to continue to evaluate who those people are. I'm trying to list on my computer at all times that stays updated with 30 names.
Yeah.
Right? And it's 30 people that I can call at any time.
Yeah.
And it's people, there's people I met from high school, there's people I've met recently, and I keep that list updated. And it's 30 people I can refer business to, 30 people I can call if I have a question, 30 people that I look at as leaders in different spaces, that if I need something, I can reach out every time, and vice versa.
Yeah.
They can call and leave switch with me. And that's been a game changer. If I could say anything, and why I wrote the whole book, was build that board of advisors, build those people in your life that will help you, and be always willing to reciprocate. And having that has been the biggest game changer in my life. So curiosity, right? Being not afraid to fail, and building with people around you will take you to them. Yeah. And I truly believe in those three things.
I love that. Community is everything. Yeah, totally. That's fantastic. All right. So you can find Rob on LinkedIn. It's Rob, and then his last name is Napoli, Napoli.
Yep. Our website, robnapoli.com, has LinkedIn, has Instagram, has all the places, has all my contact information.
Your book.
Also has links to my book. Yeah, The Social Soul. Has a link to the podcast. There's 105 episodes on entrepreneurship, if you want to go back and listen, Bare Necessities.
Yeah.
Hopefully the Bare Necessities get stuck in your head.
Love the name.
And
Yeah.
that's the whole original.
Yeah.
And then I did a children's book called Bear Builds a Brain. And I really wanted to, and I'm actually more proud of the children's book.
Yeah.
I was approached by someone who was like, hey, sorry, this kid's book series and help you transform them into a kid's version. I really wanted to be analog. So the idea behind it is I have two amazing nieces and a nephew, and another nephew in the way. I really wanted to create something where they're coming into a world where my niece, who's 4 years old, knows how to work an iPhone better than I do.
Yeah.
And that's going to be their reality. And so I wanted to write a book that allows parents, teachers, and adults to teach their kids the analog version of what they do on the playground in school and all those things, and that they are being seen and that everyone is seen. And like, it's really easy to not be seen or feel like you're not being seen. It's like, no, you are being watched, you are being seen. And it's important for you to understand that. It's important for you to just be authentic and be yourself, surround yourself and build that community. And that was the idea behind the book, is analog schoolyard, build the right community, be authentically you, and know how to leverage on the things that you're passionate about and build that circle. And so, yeah, that was, I know I didn't talk about much before, but I've always liked to share that because that, to be honest, is one of the most proud things I'm most proud of doing. It's the actual children's book and really putting it out there for my future family to
and the future generation. Yeah. I think there's a lot of things that the adults can learn from that book too.
Yes, it's a fun book. I was honestly writing a book. I know you're writing a book. I know we're out of time. I know you're writing a book and you're about to finish. I'm excited for that. And writing a book is hard. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. Yeah. I remember the fear before I went out. And like, it's funny because my launch with my book was that day it launched was actually a really good time for me because I passed away. And the day the book launched and went live was the day of the funeral. And then the day that I launched my children's book was right the day that I accepted my control at Omniboost. And it was like, these things, like I could have done more with it in book tours and stuff, but then I just had weird things happen, but like they still grew in a way that I never thought possible. And the feedback I got was amazing. Yeah. So I'm really excited for your book to come out for others out there. Don't be afraid. Put your story out there in any media you want, and it is one of the most liberating things. And so I'm excited for your book to come out. I can't wait for it to come out. I can't wait to see. And I loved your journey in the podcast. I just want to shout out you. This podcast is amazing. I love the way that you are really looking at sharing different people's stories and lessons as it relates to marketing, but from a bigger picture of the business acumen, because marketing, everyone looks at it as a cost center, but it's so much more.
It's so much more.
How you're highlighting that.
Yeah.
So I just want to give you your flowers on that.
Thank you, Rob. I mean, it is so much more. And I think that, your mom and pop's bakery can jump onto this and learn so much from, Omniboost or however any other company who, maybe just raised 100 million and so on and so forth. It's like, that may not be their trajectory, but it's like, what are the key things that they've kind of learned from that growth period that I can then strategically interject in my business and kind of push forward? Because, and to your point, everyone that starts something or is an entrepreneur, it's like they've had to take that leap of faith. They've had to not be scared. And I think the one thing for me, like you said, when writing the book, it's very fearful because it's the first time you think you're ever going to put yourself out there, and am I going to get accepted? Are my peers going to like it and all that kind of stuff? But at the end of the day, you're not going to be for everybody. And I think launching the podcast helped me realize that. And now I have my conversations, I have fun with it. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you can find your content elsewhere, and I think that's the most important thing, is to let go.
100%.
Let go.
100%.
Yeah.
I love it. Like that's the ending of this is like, let it go.
Yeah.
And just let it be, like go, like let it ride. Cause, you find out so much more about yourself and the community that you're trying to build. And you also, when you're willing to put yourself out there and your authentic self, what reciprocates back to you, you bring that energy back and you really open opportunities for yourself. So I'm excited to see where you continue to grow.
Likewise, Rob. Likewise.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being on.
I don't know why the thumbs. I don't know where the thumbs.
Oh, look at that.